So I got really lucky today. So I showed up this morning with about a 45-minute presentation, and then luckily we had a great edgy presentation this morning, and a wonderful book was gifted to us as well, enabling me to actually hopefully get this done in 30 minutes. So we'll have to see. So let's start with my favorite topic. Who am I? I'm not I'm just being honest. I'm not sure, actually. I've just started a journey of trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm trying a few things on for size. I'm not sure that first title is going to stick, but we'll have to see what happens. But in the past, and even today, not only was I one of the co-creators of the Discipline Agile Toolkit, which I'm going to talk about for a little bit here, but I was also the lead behind the Agile data and the Agile modeling methods. So I have a tendency to take on some of the harder topics, or perhaps less sexy topics is a better way of saying it. With the intersection group, my official title is now not president. There had to be at least one worker. So a lot of executives, one worker. It's like being at a bank almost. But I'm from Toronto, so you can't swing a dead cat in downtown Toronto without hitting a bank. So, or a bank branch. It's the weirdest thing. Like literally, we have like bank branches on every corner, and they're all empty. But yeah, it's a weird situation going right now. But anyways, enough about that. So I want to first start making a few observations, and frankly, we've heard them all over the last couple of days. So I'm just going to summarize very quickly. I'm going to do a quick overview of the edgy and Discipline Agile architectures, because they're both architected, and this to me is important because I'm not so convinced that other frameworks and methods and toolkits and other good things are as architected and thought through as they need to be. And they have different architectures, which is an important observation that I want to make. Hopefully you'll see why. And then I'm going to take a look at some of the aspects of edgy and share some opinions and hopefully put a few things in context. I'm a big fan of context counts as a concept, so we'll also talk about that in a bit. So anyway, some observations of our environment. And I believe we've heard all these things over the last 2 days, the constant pace of change, climate change. I'm glad to hear a lot about that. I'm sad to hear a lot about that. Didn't hear as much about technical debt and organizational technical debt, although one lady had a really good point yesterday, and I'm gonna circle back on that. About the back-end systems being a freaking disaster. Get used to that. But anyways, that needs to be addressed. I will talk about that in a bit. Heard a little bit about AI, not as much about robotics as I was hoping to see. I'm getting very, very interested in these topics. I see them as both a threat and an opportunity, and I think society is about to be blindsided dramatically by both of these things. I'm seeing a lot of organizations picking away at their workforce, dozen people here, a couple hundred people there, through these technologies. And transformation fatigue as well, and agile fatigue. I'm glad to hear that a lot of people are getting frustrated with agile. Thanks for joining the crowd. And it's about time. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well and why I think it's happening. Some of the fault is definitely on the Agile community, but some of it is also on everybody else. So I'll talk about that. But there's lots of opportunities. So some of these threats are also opportunities. Not all of them were, I think. But certainly we're seeing a lot of new ways of working and new ways of thinking. I think this event particularly focused on new ways of thinking, although we are preaching to the choir a bit, but new ways of thinking for the rest of society might be a way of looking at it. And arguably increasing agility may also be a threat because it's not working as well. So anyways, let's take a look at the architecture of edgy. So the source of this material is a great presentation that our multiple presidents did a while back, as well as the book that we were gifted today. So thank you once again for that. So we heard a good overview of edgy today. So I'm not gonna reiterate the good things that we heard. I love the word interplay. That is a good evolution. Probably the most interesting thing, at least for me, on this slide. So I can't say enough good things about that. But anyways, let's get into the architecture, which we have heard from several people today. So once again, I won't go into a lot of detail. But as we know, there's the three facets. Many people have been sharing the three-circle diagram, which I will also do as well. Arguably more importantly, or more interestingly, are the intersections between the facets and between all three facets. And then, of course, the enterprise elements describing those facets. And I'm going to explore those in a bit. So the three facets, we've heard a lot about identity. So why do we exist? Why are we here? What matters to us? Architecture, and of course, experience. All three are important. All three are, each of which, I guess, it might be a better way of looking at it, are coming from different communities, and here we are intersecting them, which is where it starts to get interesting. So, we see the one intersection around organization, one around brand, and one around product. Perhaps a better word is offering. So I'll throw that out there as a potential suggestion. And the reason why I say that is we talk about products, services, and combinations thereof. And that is more of a product, or that's more of an offering type of a concept rather than product. Many people, having played the methodology game for decades, words matter. And you'll never get, in English being English, you'll never get the right words, but you could certainly reduce the damage that you cause with your screwy English words. So anyway, and I say that on purpose, and I'm hoping King Charles continues his focus on the English language. I suspect he won't. But anyways, because he's made it clear he's not going to. And then we have it all coming together, which I'm going to start with this vision, and I'm going to end with this vision today. But enterprise design scope, what should we be focusing on, and how does it all interplay and interact with each other? So that's a very brief overview of the architecture of EDGI. So now let's take a look at the architecture of the Discipline Agile Toolkit. This is something that I've worked on since 2008, 2009 timeframe. It's now owned by, it originally came out of IBM, then it transitioned to the Discipline Agile organization, which I owned, and then sold to PMI, and then now it's owned at the Project Management Institute, and now it's owned by the Project Management Institute, from which I recently moved on from. So let's take a look at this architecture. So we purposely looked at four aspects of this toolkit. The first is mindset. What's your way of thinking? And this has been a big theme at the conference, like different mindsets and sharing of mindset. And that's, I think, the most important aspect of the DA toolkit, of the architecture of the DA toolkit, I should say, which is why it's the biggest bubble. The next most important aspect is people. And who are we and how do we interact with each other, and our teaming structures and organizational structures. So it's people and structures and collaboration and all that good sort of stuff. Flow, how do we collaborate together? How do we work together? So your collaborative way of working. And then practices, more of your static way of working. I should have also mentioned, I'm going to put a PDF of these slides on SlideShare. Maybe tonight, more than likely tomorrow, but definitely in the next day or two, so you don't need to madly take pictures or write if you don't want to. So anyways, these are four aspects that pervade the DA toolkit. So let's take a look at the mindset. So one of the things, and one of the, I think, frustrations, one of the things I want to observe about Agile and the frustration I've heard about Agile, and once again, great, love it, I'm frustrated too, is the mindset of Agile is based on the work of 17 people, most of whom were programmers and or consultants, so there's a phenomenally biased group, all of whom were male, to add a little more bias, of a little over 20 years ago, solving the problems of the software development field 20 years ago, which is a very narrow aspect of the overall stuff that we do in the organizational world. So when you look at Agile and you're frustrated for some reason, well, you're looking at something that's 20 years old, that's focused on something you're not focused on, So maybe some of the problem is you. Your expectations are a bit out of whack. So anyways, now having said that, maybe they should redo things. Now, one of the unfortunate things, or ironic things might be a nicer way of saying it, about the Agile community, for a group of people that can't shut up about change, they decided to not change the Agile Manifesto. So it's carved in stone. So anyways, luckily I'm not constrained by that. So in DA, we decided to rethink things, and we decided to ask the question, well, based on what we've learned over the last almost 2 decades at the time, and the fact that we're really looking at enterprise as not just software development, how would we describe a mindset? What would actually work? So anyways, we came up with this mindset of, we believe in a collection of principles, and because we believe in these principles, we make promises both to ourselves and to our colleagues and to our stakeholders. Here's how we're going to interact. Here's how we're going to collaborate with you and with ourselves. And in order to fulfill these promises, we're going to follow some guidelines. Now, this is the shared mindset of DA, right? Now, one of the things we've also done, and it's phenomenally easy to observe, that different types, and we've clearly observed this in intersection, is that different people from different backgrounds come to the table with different mindsets. The designer folks come to the table with a slightly different mindset than the enterprise architects folks. We know this, right? Which is different yet again from the finance folks and the marketing folks, and so on. So this is not Tolkien. For those of you who know where that's from, one ring, one mindset does not rule them all. That is phenomenally naive. Ignorant would be a better word there. It's English, right? Got to get the words right. So in DA, we also are flexible. So we realize that different areas, different people coming from different domains are going to come with a different set of philosophies. So the enterprise architects will have their set of philosophies, the designers have their set of philosophies, marketing has their set of philosophies, and so on and so on and so on. That's perfectly okay. It's natural. Don't fight it. It's going to happen anyways. And frankly, this is a huge advantage for us. This is why we want to have multidisciplinary teams and interact with each other and intersect and blah, 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 blah. Have all this great interplay. So build it into the toolkit, right? Make it explicit. Take the mystery out of things is another one of my philosophies, at least. Don't force people to guess. I'm also a firm believer that choice is good. And we heard this over and over and over again. Everything is situational. Context counts. Contingency theory, all that good sort of stuff, right? Different people in different situations are going to work in different ways. One size does not fit all. This is, I think, another reason why people are frustrated with Agile, because you're looking at the prescriptive methods like Scrum and SAFe and others, and you're telling yourself that's Agile. No, those are instantiations of potential Agile ways of working, which may or may not be good for you. The previous presentation in here, the gentleman had a story that user stories weren't working for them, so they came up with another technique. Good. User stories aren't carved in stone. Do the right thing for the situation that you're in. So in the toolkit, instead of telling you what to do, which is what 99% of the frameworks and methods tell you, we instead give you options. We tell you what to think about. So when it comes to asset management, for example, 2 of the things to think about are how are we going to publish these assets, make them available to people, like enterprise assets, like some of the things we were talking about earlier, or other speakers were talking about earlier. How are we going to fund usage of these assets? Now, there's 2 different, and then for each of these things that you should consider, or maybe have somebody tell you what to do, depending on the culture of your organization, there's options. There's different ways of doing things. Now, we're not saying we've identified all potential options, but there's about 1,700 practices in the toolkit, so we've identified a few. It's not like a methodology with 13 best practices. So anyways, so all practices are contextual. And so there's 2 types of lists there. One with an arrow, that's more of a maturity model or an improvement vector, might be a better way of saying that. So the strategies towards the top of the list are generally more effective in practice than the strategies towards the bottom of the list. But your mileage may vary, depends on your context, depends on your capability, depends on your culture and your skills and your all that good sort of stuff, and regulatory concerns and many others. So I'm very leery about the term best practice. I think that's a sucker's bet. But being a flexible person, because I'm always challenging, the rhetoric that's coming out of my mouth. And I'm always looking for situations where maybe there are best practices. And what I've figured out, what I've identified, is that when you can narrow the situation down enough, make it phenomenally narrow, you can, in fact, start identifying best practices, right? So for a classic example of this is UPS in the States, the brown truck guys, right? And about 15, 20 years ago, they did a human factors analysis, human movement analysis of how do you enter and leave the truck, because they wanted to reduce injuries and, save money and all, not hurt their people, but also save money, because you don't have people off, right? And they did a phenomenally detailed analysis of that, and they trained their people. Here's how you place your hand and place your foot and twist 32 degrees and put your next foot down and your next foot down, and they train you in that because that is the best way of exiting the truck. And the trucks are all built in the exact same way, these big brown ugly things. And here's how you enter the truck, and here's how you open the back doors, because they're trying to reduce repetitive injuries. So anyways, in these very narrow domains, or very simple domains, so earlier one of the speakers was showing Cynefin, you can in fact define best practices. Although these simple domains are few and far between, it's narrow, which is very specific, is where you can potentially have best practices. We also have the scope of the entire enterprise. It's not just about software development in the DA world, it's about the entire enterprise and how do we work together. How do we work in the marketing area and the strategy and the governance area, but also how do we work together? How do we collaborate together as teams? So what are the intersections between all these things? And for all of these, what we call process blades or process areas, the architecture is fractal. So we talk about mindset and people and so on. So a bunch of interesting stuff. So how would I apply this to Edgy? And what observations can I make, having helped organizations around the world and try to explain this stuff and try to train people and educate people in this weird discipline agile stuff that we've had for quite a while now. So what do I have to say about identity? First, identity can be really hard to agree on because you've got different people in your organization coming from different areas with different priorities, blah, 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 anthropology, all that good sort of stuff. We got issue, and that's okay, right? So don't expect identity to be an easy kill. I would argue we need to become a learning organization. Now, one of the speakers was talking about Peter Senge and all good sort of stuff, but it's not about transformations. I'm phenomenally concerned about these digital transformations and agile transformations, and other speakers have had their say on that too. That might be a start, so I'll throw them that bone, but the goal is not to become a Scrum organization or a SAFe organization. What a phenomenally stupid thing to do. Now, I'm sure there's some consultants here that would disagree with me because they're SAFe consultants and that's what their job is, to sell you. But really, I want to become a learning organization that can improve and adapt and help the world and all that sort of stuff. So it really is about becoming a learning organization or something, a purposeful organization. And if you have identified identity and come to an agreement on it, it makes HR a lot easier because gives them guidance for how to hire, how to build teams, or help you build teams is more accurate, all that good sort of stuff. So identity is a phenomenally good thing if you can do it. What about this crazy architecture stuff? Now, to put this into practice, I'm a fellow of ISA, the International Association of Software Architects, for whatever value that is. And the reason why I'm pointing that out, I'm just about to give my architecture friends a hard time. So first of all, you should have architecture at all levels. This is the the museum in Toronto, Ontario. Really sort of cool addition to an ancient museum. Focus on people over technology. It really is about the people. Yeah, technology is okay and really cool and fun toys, but it really is about the people that you're trying to help and enable with your cool technologies and cool toys. Architects also implement. This is a religious debate. I don't debate this. I prescribe this. This is one of the few things you're going to hear me prescribe. You need to interact. You need to actively work with your customers to implement your great ideas. Annika's talk the other day was an example of that, right? It wasn't. Annika's story was not, well, we created this big Milky Way diagram. It's totally cool. Look at all these bubbles connected by lines, and then we threw it over the wall to the monkeys, and the monkeys did what they're told because we're architects and we're smart and people do what we tell them to do, right? Because that is partially the attitude we hear with some architects. The story was, yeah, we worked on this, and then we brought it out the field to these other partner organizations, and then we worked with them, we communicated with them, we evolved what we were doing because it was a reality. So that was implementation to me. They were implementing their vision. Now, if they were a software architect, I would expect them to be coding, because software architects that don't code, they don't get listened to. Techies are phenomenally harsh in that respect. So anyways, it is what it is. I'm concerned that the software folks among us don't have the architecture skills that they need. I think things have gotten worse over the years, not that it's been great. And finally, it's about function and form, not just about form and not just about, like, the architects tend to focus on function, at least the juniors do, and forget the form. Whereas the junior designers tend to get it the other way. Some observations about experience. Leadership must lead. So if you want to, set your culture and set your, the leaders must exhibit the culture and the vision, and at all points in time. Some of us were talking about Patagonia, and the gentleman running that is amazing. He lives the climate dream and the environmental dream, and he's very clearly acted on that. We need lean product management. So all the good stuff that Eric Rees has been doing and others, we really do need to look at the bigger picture. And in combination with that, I'll go back to that point in a second, value streams. We really need to be looking at the whole picture from end to end. How do we serve our customers? How do we bring offerings? And it should really be lean offering management, but product management is the unfortunate industry term. It is what it is, right? English, gotta love it. And then going back, designers also implement. It's not just the previous speaker said something along the lines. It's not just about making it look pretty. Design is not making it look pretty. It's making it work. Something like that. I misquoted, but something like that. And if you don't understand how to implement and the impact of your design. So everybody likes to talk about the Apple iPhone, or the iPhone, one button, yada yada yada. If that button didn't work, nobody cares how pretty that is. Nobody would care. The iPhone would have been dead in the water if that button didn't actually work, right? So it's not just about making it look good. It's about making it work and look good. Work well and work good, or work well and look good. Whatever. Okay. When it comes to being an organization, observation of an organization, be agile. This is a picture of a mermation. Phenomenally interesting to watch. I'll stop the car and watch this stuff for an hour. The birds are amazing. But anyways, be agile. And being agile is about about serving your customers and about quality and collaboration and working together. And there's no bird controlling all this. Everybody's working together and they're flocking around and doing their thing. And they're not slamming into each other. I sort of wait for that too, but it never happens. Because that would be cool. Not good for the birds, but it would be fun to get on film. Invest in your people. I can never say that enough. And once again, become a learning organization. I think that's the direction, or a purposeful organization or something. It's not just about transformation. Some observations about product, other than the fact that maybe we should be talking about offerings. Look at the big picture. Multiple speakers have said that, so I'm not going to belabor the point. Once again, value streams and flow. So it's not just about product. It's not just, this is a product, but if Logitech can't get this in my hands, if they can't update it, if they can't put the buttons in the right place, there's some ergonomic issues going on here. If they're not looking at the whole picture and getting it to me and all this sort of stuff, it doesn't really matter what this clicker product thing. Who cares? Work closely with your customers. Also, can't say that enough. And I've worked recently worked with designers and product managers who should have known better. And we had this project that was just tanking. And one of the very first things I got brought in to help and try to make it better. And one of the very first questions is, who's the customer? Where are they? I see a room full of designers and some developers and architects. I don't see any customers here. Oh, well, we don't have one. Okay, you're done. You're done. You got nothing to do. If you don't know who your customer is, or have like a persona or something, some sort of customer fill-in, you're done. And once again, lean product management. Some thoughts about brand. Once again, value streams. The value streams, the way that you interact with your customers and the way you bring value to them is absolutely critical. I'm going to go a couple minutes late, I'm sorry. Only a couple. Be external facing. Once again, I see a lot of organizations not working with the customers and not keeping an eye on what the heck's going on in customer land. I've heard a lot of good talk about trust. Trust, unfortunately, takes years to build and only moments to break. And this can be devastating. And so be very, very, very aware of that, because I've seen some very bad happenings. So finally, and somebody earlier today was asking, what does the middle look like? If you expand, you can get the middle. So anyway, so it really is about your enterprise, looking at the bigger picture. How can we make the enterprise successful? So some observations about enterprise. Well, I really like, even though the architecture of Edgy is different than DA, I love the fact that it's architected. I think the architecture is really solid. Incredible amounts of work went into that. It's still evolving, as all good architectures do, but it's pretty darn solid. Similarly, I would say the exact same things of the DA architecture. Now, what's the delta here? Ooh, there's a harsh question. I think I would recommend that the Edgy team can make the mindset stuff more explicit. So when you read the book, there's mindset all over the place. It's there, but it's not explicit. So just like we put together principles and promises and guidelines, made it explicit, because for years in DA, that stuff was all implicit. You had to read between the lines, and we got dinged for that constantly. So one thing I would suggest is, now this is hard work, and I feel guilty about suggesting this because going down this path is rough. So anyways, but working through the mindset. So what does the mindset of all these great facets intersecting, and what is the mindset that you're bringing to the table? It's there, it's there in the book. It's there, it is there, but maybe not perfectly explicit. So anyways, a lot of great stuff in Edgy. So some parting advice, Wally, awesome, or a Wally knockoff, I should say. You can do this. It's going to be hard. We know this. A lot of people have been talking about that. Get used to that. The work will never end. This is good. For those of us who like to be employed, this is good. And we can all do this together, which I think this event is all about, and I think this is what the overall intersection ecosystem is all about. So thank you very much.